My God. Look at how majestic this David Hasselhoff action figure is. Look at how tight and high-waisted those jeans are. Look at that buckle. What is even on the buckle? Can you even tell? I can't even get it to focus. Look at these boots. Those are man butt-kicking boots right there. Look at that. Oh, and just the beady blue eyes. Come on, focus. Focus. You need to focus. And the red turtleneck. It takes a real man to wear a turtleneck that red. I mean, this guy, I can't tell if he's going to fight crime or if he's going to assail at Cato, you know? Like, and that leather jacket that just very obviously is too small for him. Do you really think he's going to zip that up? No, he's not going to zip that up. There's no way. It's got to be one of my favorite action figures of all time. I've had this thing since I was 5. You know what? We should probably talk about poetry. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to finish this reading of J. Alfred Prufrock. I'm going to give you guys a very, what's the word I'm looking for here? Very general discussion question. I want you guys to really go after this discussion question. I'll tell you after we finish analyzing the poem. Next week, I'm thinking, why don't we just go ahead and jump into Heart of Darkness? We'll begin with a introduction to Heart of Darkness video on Monday. It may be Tuesday, depending on how my bandwidth is. And we'll begin discussing that thing. We might just kind of discuss Heart of Darkness over the next 2 weeks. I'll start giving you guys ideas on your final research paper, because I'm starting to grade the poetry analysis papers, and that's going to be essay 3 and 4. So we're getting close to actually being able to say this is your grade for the class. As far as the quiz grades go, as long as you're participating in the discussion forum, you're going to get your quiz grades. So this is actually a huge benefit for those of you who have not been participating in those. So without further ado, let's return to our reading of J. Alfred Prufrock. So last time we learned that Mr. Prufrock wishes he could be a crab. And he feels that low. He feels that completely and totally worthless. All because of his inability to fit in with society. So let's keep going. And the afternoon, the evening, sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers. Asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor here beside you and me. Should I, after tea and cakes and ices, have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? But though I have wept and fasted, wept and prayed, though I have seen my head grown slightly bald, brought in upon a platter, I am no prophet, and here's no great matter. I've seen the moment of my greatness flicker. I've seen the eternal footman hold my coat and snicker, and in short, I was afraid. What do you think Prufrock's referencing with the head on the platter? Especially when he says he's no prophet. Again, my interactions with my students in the past have told me that they actually don't really know that much about Christianity, which is shocking to me. I need to stop being shocked by that, because it seems to always be the case. John the Baptist's head was placed, his head was cut off and brought to Salome, who was the daughter of, was it Herod? I mean, even my knowledge falters sometimes. But anyway, his head was brought to Salome, and it's a really gruesome, really messed up story from the Bible. Anyway, it was the whims of a woman, right? I don't remember if she fell in love. In the opera, there's an opera called Salome. Really interesting opera. I did not expect a woman to actually be nude on stage. I was there with one of my college teachers at the time, and when I was like, Dr. Reese, is that girl naked? She was like, yes, David, she's naked. I was like, I was like, oh my goodness. But anyway, it's a very sultry play. So the implication here, according to the legend, the opera, the myth, is that Salome fell in love with John the Baptist, and when he refused her advances, she had his head cut off. So he, for a moment, compares himself to John the Baptist, but then says, well, I know that that's not really me. Prufrock is aware that he's doing these grandiose comparisons, right? It's like, oh my goodness, I suffer so, my lot is so unfortunate. And then it's like he's brought down to reality. Yeah, I know I'm not really a prophet, right? it's funny because as someone who suffers from depression, this is something that I actually do a little bit. Catastrophizing, kind of getting a little bit of a delusion of grandeur. When you stop and you inflate things far above what they actually are, that's a really big sign of depression. So we can pretty easily check off the box all the potential mental problems that he has. He's got some of that going on as well. Let's keep going. Gosh, I love this poem, as crazy and weird as it is. So, would it have been worth it after all? After the cups, the marmalade, the tea, among the porcelain, among some talk of you and me, would it have been worthwhile to have bitten off the matter with a smile, to have squeezed the universe into a ball, to roll it towards some overwhelming question, to say, I am Lazarus, come from the dead, come back to tell you all, I shall tell you all. If one settling a pillow by her head should say, that is not what I meant at all. That is not it at all. This is such a difficult passage to actually interpret because Prufrock seems to be giving in to some great fit of passion, kind of here. He is he's comparing the taking of tea and jelly and snacks, biscuits, whatever, and saying, should I tell people the immensity of my feelings? Should I be like, I'm come back from the dead, from the depths of my suffering? And again, he seems to understand, he seems to know that he's freaking out a little bit. He's going too far. He gets carried away. And the reaction of a woman to this, which, again, according to kind of a high modernist sensibility, this doesn't seem to actually be happening, but he's afraid it would. A woman laying on a couch or laying on a pillow nearby, be like, that's not what we're talking about, Prufrock. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant at all. Not many people have struggled in romance. I mean, again, okay, that's a stupid statement. Not many people have struggled at the level of Prufrock in romance. For most of the people that I've known, at some point, romance, relationships, intimacy, at least come sort of naturally. For somebody who this does not come naturally, this passage is a little bit chilling. Because I'm going to have to go TMI. I'm someone who really struggled with this aspect of my life for a long time, right? And I can't really go into specifics because it's still something that I don't really understand myself, which I'm sure all of you guys watching this video are like, oh, duh, you're such an awkward weirdo. Yeah, but it's like I just couldn't mesh. I just couldn't operate in that world without really kind of losing my mind. And I was so overwhelmed with the need to be grandiose and big and special that everybody would just kind of sort of look at me like, what are you talking about? So when you think that you're in love with someone, and again, I don't know how many of you guys are going to share this experience, but you think that you're in love with someone, and you come around to finally telling them, and they respond with, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh man, that actually that stings to think about, because there's a familiarity to that for me. And you'll notice this is very reader response for me. I'm taking this from my own experience of love or lack of love, that lack of reciprocation. It was much later in my life that I finally kind of sort of, figured this aspect of the world and myself out. And so those types of events were a little common for me. And so when Prufrock talks about being lost in this grandiosity and lost in this sense of, confessing one's love or opening oneself in a way that they feel exposed, and then the person he's talking to, the woman or the object of his affection, is like, what are you talking about? That's not what I mean. I don't feel that way, right? I don't feel that way at all. Oh, golly, it's as inaccessible as it is. It comes off really powerfully, at least for me. Let's keep trudging through this nightmare. So, and would it have been worth it after all? Would it have been worthwhile after the sunsets and the dooryards and the sprinkled streets? After the novels, after the teacups, after the skirts that trail along the floor, and this and so much more? It is impossible to say just what I mean. But as if a magic lantern through the nerves and patterns on the screen, would it have been worthwhile if one settling a pillow... I just realized that... Oh, no, it's repeating itself. If one settling a pillow or throwing off a shawl and turning toward the window should say, that is not it at all. That is not what I meant at all. So we have a repeat of the same sensibility here. No, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. Am an attendant lord, one that will do to swell a progress, to start a scene or two, advise the prince withal an easy tool, deferential, glad to be of use, politic, cautious and meticulous, full of high sentence but a bit obtuse. At times, indeed, almost ridiculous, almost at times the fool. I grow old. I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. It's very easy to look at this and laugh at it. Prufrock is almost like engaging with how ridiculous he is. I am not an attendant lord. I am starting a scene or two. I am clownish, a buffoon. Now, it's not going to be shocking for you guys to hear I've been quite the buffoon myself in my life. You learn to embrace it a little bit, right? And he comes to the end, I grow old. Shall I wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled? Like, he would look ridiculous. It's like, you know what? Maybe I should just give up a little bit. Maybe I should embrace what I am. The goofball weirdo that's doomed to just be so outside of society that the things that I dream about, the things that I hope for, the things that scare me so much, maybe it'd be better if I stopped chasing it. Maybe it'd be better if I stopped chasing it. Maybe I should just be this strange, weird, balding, old weirdo, right? Now, let's finish this monstrosity out. I grow old, I shall wear the bottom of my trousers rolled. Shall I part my hair behind? Do I dare to eat a peach? I shall wear white flannel trousers and walk upon the beach. I've heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think they will sing to me. That's such a dumb line. It's such a dumb line. He's talking about wearing white flannel trousers on the beach. I don't know what style was like back then, but I mean, I can't imagine anybody ever seeing somebody walking down the beach wearing white flannel trousers and being like, yeah, that dude's got it on. Like, cool, man. That dude's cool. Shall I part my hair behind? He's talking about comb over there, right? Should I try to hide my bald spot? Do I dare to eat a peach? What's up with that? Why so worried about eating a peach? I don't want to go too into this, but peaches as a fruit have an erotic connotation to them. They are succulent. They kind of resemble certain parts of human anatomy. And so when he says daring to eat a peach, I can't help but be suspect. And this also kind of leads back to something I don't think I talked about before. You know how he's walking around downtown and he's in the seedy restaurants and bars and joints? Why is a relatively rich guy like him hanging out there? I think there's a lot of implication here that Prufrock spends a lot of times with prostitutes. And if you kind of stop and think about it, that's really sad. Like, it's really, really sad. This Dorko is visiting women of the night, and he's also desperately trying to, forge a connection and have a relationship. It's, oh God, Alfred, just sit down, just chill a little bit. Maybe he is, but the mermaids. Mermaids also have an erotic connotation to them as well. Mermaids were supposed to be, half women, half fish, and we think of them as being kind of, voluptuous in a way. And when he says, I hear the mermaids singing each to each, I do not think they will sing to me. It's so sad because he's like, they're not going to sing to me because I'm so weird and I'm so strange and I'm dressed in white flannel trousers and I'm too thin and I go talk to the prostitutes. Like, Jesus, Alfred, let up on yourself. There's a really funny cartoon. I think it's an old New Yorker cartoon, and it's got a caricature drawing of Prufrock. And he's walking down the beach, and there's these two mermaids sitting on a rock, and they're like, ugh, there's Prufrock again. Let's not sing for him. I absolutely love that. I'm not even going to sing for that dude. It's hard not to think of this, our first instinct is to kind of think of this line as tragic. Even the imaginary mermaids won't sing to me. Oh, boo-hoo, Alfred. Go hire a hooker, right? But at the same time, I think it's better to kind of think of this almost as farcical and in kind of tongue-in-cheek. Maybe this isn't meant to be the depressing poem that we've always made it. It's hard not to laugh at this. This guy is so unbelievably lost in his own delusion that he even thinks the mermaids in his imagination don't want to sing to him. Really, Alfred? Let's now, to be fair, as we get to the last line, this is truly depressing stuff here. It's a very powerful last line, even though I feel like there's some farcical elements to it. It's hard not to see kind of the darkness in these last two stanzas. I have seen them riding seaward on the waves, combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water white and black. That should actually kind of remind you of Frost there. When he imitates the sound of the snow in the woods, this actually kind of sounds a little bit like the ocean itself. Combing the white hair of the waves blown back when the wind blows the water white and black. It's kind of got that thing going on. It's kind of nifty. It's fun to say. And then we get to the last stanza. We have lingered in the chambers of the sea by sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us and we drown. That's a really awesome last line. As farcical as this is, that last line is something else. Prufrock is basically saying, we have lingered in the chambers of the sea, near sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown. Because you got that, that echoing of the sounds of the ocean again. He's describing a kind of land of fantasy, right? The mermaids are supposed to be like fantasy girls and, kind of a fantasy realm where he can exist and his dreams can be fulfilled. And he's lingered in the chambers of the sea. He's been in this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I've said it a million times, kind of a twilight zone of his own imagination, as he's created this kind of weird dream world where he exists among these girls, right? Going back to the issues of incels that I mentioned earlier. I mentioned this in class. I don't remember if I talked about it in my last lecture. Incels are people who define themselves as involuntary celibates. People who want intimacy, but for reasons, whether it be social, whether it be physical attractiveness, which are both happening here, cannot get that intimacy. That realm of fantasy that Prufrock seems to be retreating to here really reminds me of a lot of the stuff that you see coming out of the incel community. There's a whole community of people in Japan, guys who can't find anyone to marry, who have basically married their own pillows. and these pillows have like feminine images on them. And this is still something that kind of sticks with us. I almost feel like in a lot of ways, I hate to use this word, but Elliot was kind of being a little prophetic here. It's like the more we cannot find the intimacy that we desire, and this doesn't just necessarily have to be physical intimacy either, the more that we cannot find that social acceptance and that belonging, we retreat into ourselves. We retreat into the world of fantasy where we can create and fulfill that need for ourselves. But this in and of itself is a horrendous trap of madness. There have been several members of the incel community that have been driven to a violent madness. Look up Elliot Rodger. Elliot Rodger was a guy who basically shot up a whole community, basically terrorized a community, and his manifesto, his reason, was because of his inability to connect with girls. We linger in the chambers of the sea, near sea girls wreathed with seaweed red and brown, till human voices wake us, until the sound of other people waken us from this fantasy, until we are brought back to the real world, and we drown. It is reality that drowns us. It is being pulled away from the fantasy world that kills us, that finally destroys us. That is really chilling from a modern perspective. Looking at it from a world that has incels, that has people who are so struggling to connect with each other that they create worlds for themselves through movies, through fantasy, through anime, through video games. And ultimately, it's their connections with other people that drag them out and drown them. I hate this poem. I really hate this poem. But damn, if it does not have shocking comments to make about our society today, how isolated we are from each other, and even, some of the effects of sexual frustration, the inability to reconcile our own shortcomings with what society demands of us. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the discussion question is. Our discussion question is a simple one. I'm going to open the forum later today after this video finally goes on. It might be a whole day before it goes on. And the question is this: is there any hope for Prufrock? For someone as dorky and weird and detached as he is, do you think Prufrock could ever find someone to pull him out of this chamber in the sea? Is that even possible for him? And I expect real, thought out, substantial responses to this question. Because for someone who considers themselves an incel, for someone who is struggling with this same problem in a modern context, what hope is there for them? Right? Both of these questions are important. And yeah, I hate this poem. Hate this poem. But it has something to tell us. It has something really interesting to tell us. I'm going to go give my wife a hug and break social distancing. Anyway, you guys stay safe. We'll start Heart of Darkness next week with an intro video. It will be fun. It will be awesome. I promise. It's going to be so cool. Have a good day.